Welcome back to another episode of 217 South Mills.
Brought to you by Cabin Coffee Altoona, located at 2922 Meadowlark Lane in Altoona, Wisconsin.
And Pizza Del Rey, our favorite pizza place located in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. We're here today to talk about college football, college sports, everything going on in the world of college sports. And we're going to start with TCU in North Carolina playing their first game of 2026 in Dublin, Ireland.
Yeah.
Dublin.
I think it's great. And then I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but the Badgers are playing Pitt in Ireland in 2027.
2027, yeah.
Yes, and me and my wife will be doing a tour of Europe, going over to the game.
I hope to be joining you. Hopefully we could take the podcast abroad. Not joining you. Come on now.
I mean, but we spend a lot of time together. I kind of just want to go on vacation.
What we do in the studio. You know what I mean? Like, maybe I see you outside the studio a little bit, outside the country, and maybe we take the podcast abroad. Needless to say, with this game, my one takeaway, no matter who they think is going to win it, the one thing I think is Bill Belichick is going to have that team ready to travel, ready to play like no other.
I can promise you.
I think, I think the closest similarity is when we talked to Coach Alvarez, how he said when they went to Japan, just all the little details that we're doing, the sunglasses that he learned from NASA, all that stuff. I think Belichick, it's going to be all dotted every I, crossed every T. Everything's going to be the way it's going to be a bit true, the truest of true business trip, where I could potentially see, I'm not saying TCU, but other teams screwing around on the plane flight, doing this and that, not sleeping, not walking when you should be walking, not staying hydrated. I could just see that where with Belichick, I don't think there's going to be anything missed.
I feel there's very little room for error in that guy's entire coaching persona. There, everything is accounted for and detailed and double checked and triple checked. So, just watching him, perform in the NFL and how good he is. I mean, I'm curious to see how well he does. I think it would be great. My other question about him is, it's not the NFL. Like, you have the transfer portal. I wonder if he's going to have to curtail his personality a little bit, or if it's going to be all full blown. And if you're going to go, then go, and I'll find somebody else.
See, that's the attitude I think he's going to have. And we've talked about this before. I think look at Saban at Alabama when Alabama was winning championships. Yep. People didn't go there to get the warm and fuzzies.
Right.
People went there to win a national championship and to get drafted to play in the NFL.
Very true.
And he ran that type of ship.
Mm-hmm.
You do what I say when I say jump, you say how high.
Correct. And
people were about it. And I think people that are transferring to North Carolina are going there for that reason. They're not going there because, I want to play in a Southern school that, with a cool stadium. They're going there to be like, I don't care if we win or not, but I'm going to the NFL based on my coach.
I'm very excited to see how he performs as a coach at the college level. And I think it's great thing for North Carolina. Not that I have any skin in the game for North Carolina, but I'm hoping he actually turns around that program and makes it a contender. And then it just goes to show you what kind of an outstanding coach he was.
Yeah. So you guys are fortunate you guys had Barry Alvarez. And Barry Alvarez, probably one of the top 10 coaches of all time.
You had Urban Meyer, okay?
Well, I'll tell you, the one thing that I kind of regret is Lou Holtz went from Notre Dame to South Carolina, and I thought about it, and I almost wanted to go down there and try out for that team. Just playing for Lou Holtz, I think that guy is one of those it factor guys, right?
You had one of those experiences because Joe Gibbs came back to the Washington Redskins when you were there, and we watched him in the 80s, win with Doug Williams and
Mark Rippon,
and all those guys.
I even had Joe Bugle, who was the coach of the Hogs back in the 80s. So insane. That was just such a throwback. Even like when we installed our plays, you go back to our college days. You're installing plays based on spring ball or based on pieces of paper. Maybe looking at last year's game tape. This is 2004. To install our offense, we watched the 1983 Super Bowl. Nice. That's how we installed the offense. He's like, all right, we're going to watch a zone play. We're watching the Super Bowl in the offensive line room, watching cut-ups from the 83 Super Bowl. I'm just like, what's going on here?
You were super fortunate to be able to play for two of very legendary programs with the Green Bay Packers and the Redskins. I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of history that you got to partake in just by being on those teams.
Yeah, and nothing against Gibbs. I respected the heck out of him, but to me, it was more exciting being able to play for Joe Bugle, because I think Gibbs, his second time around when he came back in 2004, I think he was more of a delegator. I think he was, I know it needs to get done. I have the correct staff to get it done.
Right.
I'm going to allow, because basically it was the same exact staff. Like, that was the other funny thing. He didn't go out there like it was the same. Now,
was it Schottenheimer as the offense coordinator? Who was? Let's see if CT's kicking in. Can you remember your offensive coordinator?
No, I do not remember him from Washington. But Bugle was the same. No, it wasn't Schottenheimer.
No,
because it was a bigger guy, unless that guy was a tight ends coach. But the funny thing, the first day of Redskin camp, 2004, first day of camp, you're not supposed to have phones in the meetings. Well, Joe Gibbs, as he's talking, his phone goes off.
Really?
And he's like, whose phone? I'm not going to find you this time, but whose phone is? Keeps ringing. It's Gibbs' phone. Then all of a sudden, you hear a loud bang. And I think one of the speakers in the back of the auditorium tipped over. And they're like, Coach, it was a speaker. He goes, oh, thank God. I thought it was one of my staff. Because his staff, I think our average age on that Redskin staff in 2004 had to be like 73 years old. Like, there was no young coaches. Like, I mean, Bugle had to be early 70s. Mm-hmm. I think our tight ends coach was closer to 80.
Wow.
I think Gibbs was damn near 80. Like, they were also like, your thud. He's like, somebody die?
Is that one of my coaches?
He thought it was one of his position coaches.
Don Bro, B-R.
Don Bro. That's who he thought died. Don Bro was the big guy, the big guy with white hair.
That was an offensive coordinator?
Yeah, offensive
Don
coordinator.
Bro. Yep.
Bro. And it's a it looks like a French name, Breaux.
Yeah.
So, bro, if you had another takeaway of Joe Gibbs, right? He's obviously led NASCAR to championships. Yep. He's a Super Bowl winning coach. He's a coveted speaker. What can you say was some of his tangibles that made him a good leader?
I think similar, I think Joe and I always go back to Coach Alvarez. And I think those coaches, when we talk to Coach Alvarez, he's like, I picked this up from Notre Dame. I picked this up from Hayden Fry at Iowa. I think they get those nuggets from the people that they work with that are the best, and they collect them all. And I think at the end of the day, when you talk about Gibbs, he knows how to win, whether it's football, whether it's racing, whether it's even as a speaker, like winning as a speaker is, doing a good job, drawing your audience in, having your audience to want more, having your audience to take something away and talk about it for the next 3 months and implement what you said. And I think that's winning in speaking. And I think those coaches just know how to do that. I think that's the big difference maker, as opposed to a coach that knows how to run a practice and knows how to be on the sidelines for a game. To me, that's like polar opposite ends of the spectrum. I'm not saying every coach just goes out there and acts like I know where to stand during the game, but there's coaches like Coach Alvarez that know, like we look at the Rose Bowl, and you could argue, were we going to win the first Rose Bowl while Coach is out there on a cane because he just had surgery? Were we going to win it if we just went into halftime and made corrections? Or at halftime of the Rose Bowl, Coach Alvarez came in with a cane, picked up a garbage can, and whipped it at our faces. And we ducked, and it went over our faces. And then he starts telling us how garbage we are and how we need to change things and go out there with a different attitude. And we go out there and win the game. You could argue if the first didn't happen, would we get the win? Right. Or did it have to happen to get us the win? And I think good coaches know that. They could feel their team. They could sense, and they're smart about it. Like we've talked in the past about the high school level here in Wausau at DC Everest. They have a round table of players. And I go, boy, I never heard of that in high school. In college, we had that where Coach Alvarez talked to the guys, and we would do heavy leg day on Wednesday, which was our second day of practice during the week. And we'd always have a shitty Wednesday practice. Mm-hmm. I never really knew until I got older that Coach is talking to the guys like, hey, are the guys beat up? How are they feeling? And he altered practice based on that. Practice would still be tough, but he was like, all right, we went really heavy. They're sore, their legs are sore, backs are sore, whatever. We're going to ease off. I think those little things that coaches tweak are the difference between good and great.
See, I like that because he's empowering the athlete to communicate and talk about how they're feeling, right? I mean, body-wise, energy level, right? Some organizations and some coaches are all top-down.
Correct.
At Bowling Green, we had Gary Blackney, and when I got there, he was like one of the top 2 winning percentage coaches in the country, right? Well, it was his way or the highway. Mm-hmm. If you were a D lineman, this is how old this was. If you're over 275 pounds, you weren't playing on his defense. Oh, wow. Think about that. Think of what you would have to do if you're a D lineman to try to get to 275. Yeah. We had a state wrestler, Dan King, Ohio State champion. I mean, that guy, he could eat lettuce for a whole entire year and he wouldn't be under 275. Right. Yeah. But ran him out. And that guy was a dog. I mean, that guy flipped the switch. That's the guy you want in your corner. Yeah. And because, that's my rules. That's my,
And just think about how many players have impacted the game at 300 and some odd pounds of the defensive guy that chews up 3 people.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you have to be flexible. You have to be adapt with the game and the players you get. I mean, and so how long did he last at Bowling Green?
He left. He became an athletic director but one of the good guys Gary Blackney, he left. He got fired, and out of the league. And, here's the testament. And I'll say this. You play for a coach. And so in a long story short, he becomes the D coordinator of Maryland, right? Mm-hmm. And so my buddy Mark Kotzman goes to watch the game. He knows right where the coaches for Maryland are coming off the field. And he's like, hey, Coach Blackney. And this is his prized pupil, played as a true freshman along with me. And, hey, Coach. Keeps walking, doesn't even stop, doesn't give him the acknowledgement. Yeah. You want to talk about putting your tail between and to me, that was
kind of like you on draft day with one of our offensive coordinators. You're asking for no, it was combine. Sorry, it's the combine.
Quarter. Yeah, that was Brad Childress.
Really?
I said at the combines, I go, I'm not trying to blow smoke, but you had me, Casey Robach, and Dave Costa at the combines. In 2001, arguably the best 3 combined, the best 3 interior offensive linemen on the same team at the combines together. And we go up to our former offensive coordinator who we won a Rose Bowl for in 99.
Yeah.
And we're like, hey, Coach, could you get it? The one team that didn't want to interview any of the 3 of us was the Eagles. And we're like, hey, could you get us an interview with the O-line coach? We just wanted to hit every single team. He's like, I can't. You guys have a good one. Good luck.
Really?
And we're like, screw you, Chili. We blatantly gave him the finger. Probably used other words other than screw, but we were like, screw you. He just blew us off like nothing. We're like, we got you a freaking Rose Bowl. Arguably, put you on the path to get this job because of what we did for you in Wisconsin.
See, isn't that interesting? You think you're going to get like that bro hug because you're family with the guy, and then you realize that's it's just business. You're just a toy.
Correct. But then that's another thing when you talk about great coaches. Like we had the opportunity to go back with Coach Alvarez, and he'll talk about players and know them by name from his days being a coordinator at Iowa, a D coordinator at Iowa, or D coordinator at Notre Dame. Yep. He'll remember everybody's name, remember their story, remember, I go see him, he's like, how's your mom doing? Remember stories about our parents coming out and going to visit Joe or this or that. I don't know. That's the little things are different. And that's where I go back to here at DC Everest locally. It's Brad Mitchell, the head coach, him implementing that roundtable, talking to players at the high school level. And I'm not saying, so this past year they went to the game before the state championship, not saying that got them there, but holy cow, does that help the team as a whole? Does it help the coaching on how to coach that team? It's just amazing that they're doing it at that young of a level, and kudos to him for doing it.
I'm going to say this. Of all these coaches that get these big contracts, you know what they're not talking about? The strength coach. And I'll tell you this. Correct. The reason I went to Bowling Green was Coach Ward. And that guy, when you're talking about, he knows your name, he knows your family, he still reaches out, he still, it's one of the good guys.
Yeah.
And that's what solidifies the reason why I went there to Bowling Green. And, strength coaches are everything. They're motivating you on days that you just don't want to be there, right? They're making you better. And so, Coach Ward, if you're out there, thank you very much. And Joe, you were going to be a strength coach, right? You had that opportunity?
Or? Yeah, I did. When I was done, I got hurt, and they kind of offered me a position on the just to help out, and then eventually maybe possibly take a paid spot there. But I had my heart set on being a cop, man, and then I went and did that instead. But you ever have those moments in time that you wish you could go back and probably would have rewritten your entire existence? That's one of those times, But I'm not unhappy with the way it turned out, and I enjoyed law enforcement, but at the time, that's where my heart was. But it's one of those moments, or shoulda, woulda, coulda, how that would have panned out. So
Yeah.
Well, we got up next. We skipped this in last week's episode. We got Wisconsin native Hunter Wohler coming full circle with the NFL draft. And Hunter is from Muskego, Wisconsin, won 2 state championships on Camp Randall's Field in Madison. And now, as of last week, got drafted in Green Bay, got drafted in the 3rd round in the state of Wisconsin. All this happened in the state of Wisconsin. So we're happy for Hunter Wohler. He did wonderful things for the Badgers during his time in Madison, and now he's moving on to his career in the NFL. The next couple articles we have are from the Hammer out east. So we're going to start with the NCAA. Now, this is where it gets a little hairy. This article is about a possible rule change for faking injuries, and we hate the flopping, and it's definitely coming to football. My takeaway from it is that the officials are looking at if it affects the other team or not. What I say they should do is go straight to the NFL rule. I believe it's an injury under 2 minutes, automatic 10-second runoff. Mm-hmm. I mean, cut and dry. Why do we have an official in the box like a replay official going, oh, there was an injury. Now let's evaluate, did it help that team?
Right.
What is that like?
I don't understand what that means.
It's like it's stupid. It doesn't do anything.
It's such a pitiful part of sports. And I often said I saw it in soccer. And not that I watch soccer, but you would see those flopping moments in soccer, and I'd be like, how disgusting is that? Like I'm so happy we don't do that in American sports, and now it's everywhere. And LeBron James, I think,
LeBron started. Yeah,
probably one of the worst offenders I've ever seen in my life when it comes to that.
Well, little tidbit, I believe it's due to the money. Guess what? Oh, we got a review. Guess what are they going to go to? Well, let's go to our TV timeout, right? And now you got your $1 million, $3 million.
Instant replay brought to you by FedEx. Yeah.
I can see that in other sports, but in football, I do think it's for the game. Where on deep, like think about it, like all of us were offensive guys. When you're running down you have a 10, 12 play series. Once you get that momentum going, all of a sudden a D lineman or a cornerback, I got a hamstring. Yeah. Now it takes up time. Now everyone's calmed down. Yeah. Now it's what's the next play going to be? We got to get motivated to go again. I think in football it is. I'm not saying it's not advertising stuff like that, but I think the initial reason for it is for the advantage in the game.
I agree.
Cabin Coffee Altoona, located at 2922 Meadowlark Lane in Altoona, Wisconsin. Hey folks, we are a roastery. We buy our beans green from all over the world and roast right here on site. It's better than the stale, burnt, brown flavor water that you're used to. So stop on by.
Hey, I know you guys haven't celebrated yet, but you see what the XFL is doing? They have their digital marker in the football. So now, brought to you by our first down marker. Let's see. And it says first down, right? Brought to you by Toyota. Right? Can you see that coming?
I believe that we were talking about that in our podcast.
Everybody steals ideas.
Yeah, all the time.
And speaking of ideas, I just got to bring this up because talking about stealing. Did I ever tell you my headlight idea that Lexus stole from me?
Oh.
This was years ago.
Okay.
It was, your headlights on your car face straight out your car. So my idea, and I'm okay saying it because I never filed the patent, and that's on me, was if you're going left, you turn your steering wheel left. The headlights should go in the direction that you're about to go, right?
Yep.
Opposite. I happen to say it to maybe 3 people that I felt were inside my circle.
Yeah.
Like 6 months later, I see a commercial on TV with the headlights turned on.
I think your circle wasn't tight. I think you had a loose.
A couple of nuts or screws got loosened up there. Yeah. I don't know, but that really upset me because that was a multi-million-dollar idea.
I hear you.
All right. Here's the big one the Hammer sent us now. We're talking about Tennessee's quarterback. We're talking about the University of Tennessee. We're talking about the University of UCLA. And folks, after all the nonsense Joe, I, and now Kevin have talked about with NIL and the transfer portal, I believe we have witnessed our first NIL trade in college football. basically, Joe, give me his name, Tennessee quarterback,
I am Lavia.
first name Nico, went from Tennessee to UCLA. The next day, UCLA's quarterback, Joey Aguilar, went from UCLA to Tennessee.
Yep.
I mean, if that's not a trade, I don't know what is.
And you saw all the stuff on TV. They were offering him like what, $4.1 million Tennessee, or no, sorry, 2 point.
It was like 2.1 to 2.4.
And he thought after he signed the contract that he was worth $4.1 million.
Correct.
So he went into the transfer portal, yada yada yada, and it doesn't turn that people weren't as energetic to give him the money that he thought he was worth.
Yes, and I believe at UCLA, he's making 1.6 a year.
So he's lost
essentially,
money.
So essentially, he changed teams, lost money, went to a more and somebody broke this down, which is real comical. They go, he left Tennessee, which I believe doesn't have state income tax, went to UCLA, living in LA, which, that's really cheap out there, and lost money and has to pay one of the higher tax rates. Mm-hmm. It's just, and then they talk about the contract too. It's if he stayed at Tennessee, I think the deal at the end of the day would have paid him around a $10 million range. Just that one NIL deal.
Yeah, it's insane.
So now I'm not saying he's not making money, but now going from $10 million, he's probably going to make around $8 million or less at UCLA. It's who's telling? Like, is that a dad
that's
pulling him? Is it an agent?
If that's an agent, that guy needs to get fired.
Is it a coach on the other team that's forcing him to do something? I don't know.
Gibbs, turn off your phone. Gibbs, turn off your phone.
Hey, my phone's off. It's the computer.
But why is nobody talking about linemen? Why is all the quarterbacks? What is up with this?
So I think don't get any attention.
But with linemen, I think they just don't talk because the numbers aren't as big. But like we did the study, or not the study, but we brought out the numbers that were advertised a couple months ago that a lineman in Division I football, I think if he's in the top 35 teams, an offensive line average is $500,000. Was it $300,000 a year for an offensive line, which still is insane, but it's just not in the millions. Like they're talking about these big time guys in the millions. I think I saw out of all the research I've done, maybe one lineman being talked about going in the portal to go somewhere else for big money.
Listen, Notre Dame, they didn't win it because of their quarterback. They had offensive linemen that were huge, D linemen, athletes all over the field. And I would say the quarterback was probably the worst. Great guy, but
they even had a friend of the podcast, Rocco Spindler, left guard for Notre Dame, starting guard, left after his junior year when they lost the national championship and went to Nebraska.
Yeah.
And I haven't had a chance to talk to him or his dad yet, but you got to think it's for the money. I mean, why are you leaving Notre Dame, who finished number 2 in the country? You got to think they're going to be back in the playoffs next year. And you go to Nebraska, which wasn't even close to the playoffs, had to be for the money.
Now, I'm going to throw this is a little audible, but Baylor basketball, right, made it to the NCAA tournament, right? Do you know that they have 0 players left on their roster?
Are you serious?
Zero. Everybody's transferred, NIL, gone pro. Yeah. And that's a school that, you're right, has money.
And we keep on talking about at what point in time are they going to put a salary cap on this? And they're actually going to start regulating this because right now it's just a wild freaking west.
And that's the thing. They're putting a salary cap on the revenue share.
Right.
But the NIL, like back to that article we had about the legislation, it's right now they have a clearinghouse.
Right.
What fans don't understand is this is not the NFL. The NFL, you sign one contract and that's it. You can't sign any other ones. Mm-hmm. In college, okay, like let's take the kid from Michigan. Once again, CT, can't remember the kid's name right now. The kid signs a 3-year, $12 million deal. That's $4 million a year for 3 years. They put that into the clearinghouse. Now that kid probably has another 20 NIL deals that are all probably $500,000 to $1 million each. That kid, I guarantee, this year is making $20 million. And on paper in the clearinghouse, it says $4 million.
Right.
So there's no regulation whatsoever.
And then you have the collective that we haven't even mentioned, where people.
Well, the collective is the revenue. No. The collective is not. The collective is NIL from the school.
Right.
Revenue sharing is through the athletic department. So they might put the collective money through the clearinghouse. Mm-hmm. But like I said, let's just look at it in this town. If Bill Ferrario gets a deal from whatever car dealership for $1,000, I put that $1,000 through the clearinghouse. Mm-hmm. But then I could go to every restaurant and every other car dealership, collect all that money, and I'm still making that, but they only see one through the clearinghouse.
Correct.
There's no regulation whatsoever, and nobody even wants to touch it. Nobody wants to say, I'm going to be the person that fixes this.
Hey, but you know what we're going to concentrate on? We're going to work on this whole faking an injury.
Yeah, we're going to monitor whether or not it helps the other team, the injuries.
Because that's the important stuff here, folks.
So with NIL, and I'm just going to say this right now, I can pretty much predict top 10 next year. And I'll say 8 of these teams are going to be in the top 10.
Well, it's going to be recorded in the annals of time, so you better be right.
Texas Longhorns are number 1 spenders at $22.2 million just for football, right?
Yep.
Number 2, Ohio State, $20.2 million.
Yep.
Okay. And number 3, LSU, $20.1.
Yep.
All right. And number 4, Georgia, 18.3. Texas A&M, they're pissed, right? They're throwing out $17.2 million to try to get a national championship. And then Michigan, with the billions of dollars, they got like, what, $200, $300 billion sitting in the coffer. They're going to throw $16.3 million.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money being thrown around.
Absolutely. And I'm going to say it again, all that money being thrown around, nobody can regulate. Like, that's the number we see, just like going back to the Ohio State game. They go, Ohio State, whether you say bought their roster or kept their roster for $20 million, that's what we read in the article. What if it was $60 million? Like, how do we know it was $20 million? Because a reporter said it. Because somebody from Ohio State said, we spent $20 million. Well, how do we know? Like, in the NFL, when you sign a contract, I could see that contract. It has to be submitted somewhere. It gets printed. There's only one contract. You know that the Green Bay Packers last year spent X amount of dollars. We know that for a fact. The Green Bay Packers can't go get a billionaire from Milwaukee and be like, hey, could you throw us another $100 million? We're going to pay the players, but just not telling. You can't do that.
Right.
But in college, you can.
Right.
And you know what? Alabama, right there, 7 at 15.9. Isn't it shocking that the teams that, when there was no NIL, LSU, Texas, Alabama, throwing money around, right? Oh, let's go on a scavenger hunt today, guys. Oh, what is that? A briefcase. What? Oh, no, that's just grass right there. I don't know what you're talking about, son. No, there's money in here. Oh, no. No way. That's candy.
All right. Well, I think we had enough fun for today. We are going to wrap up another episode of 217 South Mills.
It's brought to you by Cabin Coffee Altoona, located at 2922 Meadowlark Lane in Altoona, Wisconsin.
And Pizza Del Rey, located in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, our favorite pizza shop in the state. Thanks again. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of 217 South Mills.
If you like what you heard, smash the like and follow buttons on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and X.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, Cabin Coffee Altoona. Tune in next time, folks.